Okay, so here we are for another conversation between Dr. Sid and Reverend Julia, but you can just call me Julie. It's all good. So Sydney, we're talking today about worthiness, right? The big topic.
Yes.
Yeah. So after our we had our gaslighting last week, and so now today we're going to talk about worthiness, and it kind of goes hand in hand, those two, between who is worthy and how we can know that we are already worthy, right? We are worthy of everything. We are worthy of higher connections and different things. So what is your take on worthiness as a psychologist and someone who helps people realize their worthiness?
So I have this little, excuse me, this little equation, kind of an arbitrary equation, but I use it a lot. Self-worth equals self-esteem plus self-respect. And each of those terms has its own meaning, but the two, self-esteem plus self-respect, add up to self-worth. So what I want to do is break the equation down, take each of those one at a time. Let me start with self-esteem. I mean, these are obviously all terms we're all familiar with, but there's certain ways I kind of look at these terms that define the terms that aren't really necessarily dictionary definitions of the term or the kind of terms that everybody automatically uses. So starting with self-esteem. Where I go with self-esteem, Julie, is to make a distinction between two types of self-esteem. One of the types of self-esteem, I kind of like to call the popular traditional definition of self-esteem, which basically boils down to physical appearance. And something that I believe, unfortunately, has become and has sustained in terms of conditioning and socializing to be the much more used definition of self-esteem than the one I'm now going to get to. And that's what I call the preferred definition. And the preferred definition of self-esteem is all about what you're about on the inside, rather than the physical self-esteem definition, which obviously is about how you look on the outside. So if we take those two possible definitions of self-esteem, part of my work with people, part of what I strive for myself, is to build up internal self-esteem so that there's less dependence on how you're feeling about your external physical self-esteem. Now, you know as well as I do, Julie, especially for women, it's not that physical appearance and self-esteem, external self-esteem doesn't matter to men. Sure it does. But women, certainly the way I see it, I hear it, continue to be socialized and conditioned to make self-esteem disproportionate on physical appearance. So part of what really needs to be done, and ultimately building up self-worth, again, is that overall equation, is to work on building up internal self-esteem. And I'm going to get to that in a moment as to how to do that. Let me just throw in the other piece of self-worth, which is self-respect. The self-respect part of self-worth is more along the lines of the things you do, the actions you take that give you a good feeling about yourself. And I'm not talking about major accomplishments here. Yeah, those are certainly nice for self-respect. We all know that. Job, school, home front, parenting, whatever it is. But I really believe what a crucial piece of self-respect is all about are the, quote, little things. The little things we do each day that most people, certainly including myself, who stops to really give themselves credit for the little things like effort, making the effort, self-control over self-defeating habits, reaching little goals, acts of kindness, acts of courage. Those are, quote, little things only because they don't necessarily add up to a major accomplishment or reaching a goal, but they can. So that's the self-respect part of self-worth. You put the two parts together, you build up your self-esteem, you build up your self-respect, you're building up your self-worth. So that's just what I'll say on the equation for the moment.
Yeah, I love that. And if I could add to have my own, it's not an equation, but it's part of the inner peace process, and it's in self-love begets inner peace. So when we have self-love, when we can really truly know that we are divine beings, I'm going to call into my ministerness. We are all connected, we are all divine beings. So when we feel diminished, we're diminishing that divineness, right? So when we can tap into the divineness within each and every one of us, it was within ourselves, right? We're just talking about ourselves. So it's that daily, and what you were saying too about the self-respect is those little wins, every day that add up to feeling accomplished, feeling worthy, because we are already worthy. We have to undo all those things that make us feel unworthy. And so it's not like we have to gain something, we have to take away things that societal definitions, like you were saying about the personal or the outside and the external part of self-esteem. And so when we understand that we don't have to gain anything, we have to undo definitions, and we have to undo those thoughts that other people, we allow other people to put on us, right? There's a saying that what you think of me is none of my business, right? Because that person has their own issues, probably about self-worth too. And if they're putting that on you, that means that's not something that you need to take on yourself. So it's learning those little baby steps. And it's all about rewiring the brain. It's that neuroplasticity that we can, again, take those little baby steps every day, so that we're no longer our inner critic. We become our inner coach or our inner cheerleader. And then that's really when you can embody the worthiness, when you exude worthiness, so it's a journey. But again, it's a journey that is so worth taking. It's been very helpful for me, to process these kinds of, that feeling of, oh, Joel, what you do, that I was doing something wrong, in my former life, and then coming into this place right now where I know I'm worthy. I know it's a beautiful place to be, and just coming back to that. If I get pulled out, I know I can come back to it very quickly. But it's a journey. Sure is.
A lifelong journey.
Yeah. And I think it's really good for teenagers and for young adults to get this sooner than having to wait till 30s and 40s and beyond, to know that they are worthy right now. They don't have to, social media can be a good thing, or it can be a really bad thing. If you're in a place that isn't, inside, if you're feeling low energy or feeling something that is pulling you and depleting you, then social media can be a more of a depletion for your system. So it's a matter of coming into a higher place, a higher vibration than it is to, and then you can use social media as a way to celebrate others.
I'm really glad you made reference there to social media, because I think it's a really relevant subject in terms of people's self-worth, maintaining self-worth, building it up versus having it cut down, and so forth. I'm figuring you find also, Julie, that one of the things that social media does to a lot of people especially people who are vulnerable to self-esteem issues, to self-worth issues, is negative comparisons.
Mhm.
People go on social media, Facebook and Instagram and all over the place, and so many people are posting things about how terrific their life is, what terrific things they're doing and so forth, what terrific relationships they're in. For enough people in this world, they're not in that place. They're not experiencing all of those great things. So if you're seeing that, and much less seeing it a lot, and you are knowing that you're not where you really want to be in those places, then social media in those contexts can be almost outright toxic, because it can really do damage to your self-worth. And that's what negative comparisons do in general. It obviously doesn't have to just be in terms of social media. One of the things I grew up with, and I think a lot of people grow up with, is, I won't say all the time, but enough of the time, my parents, rather than giving me direct acknowledgement for the big or little things that I had accomplished, they would ask me or point out, well, your cousin did this or didn't do that. Your best friend seems to be the one doing all the blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Negative comparisons are as undermining of self-worth as can be. Hence, what's so important, back for a moment to the little equation I threw in with self-esteem and self-respect. As important as the divine within is, and there's something I'm going to want to get to that we'll probably cover. I just want to say it's almost divine, stretching the word a bit, to know that you have ways, we all have ways to build our self-esteem up, to build our self-respect up. I'm a very big advocate, as I'm imagining you are, of making little lists.
Mm.
And there's a list that I recommend for self-esteem building, is a list I recommend for self-respect building. So for self-esteem building, it's really a simple idea. It's just that, as you referenced, inner critic, inner bully, will really try to get you to not do a list like this. I'm talking about just make a list in one-word adjectives of what you like about yourself on the inside. Your likable personality traits and qualities. Then when you think to yourself, hey, here's what I like about me on the inside. Again, emphasis being on what you like on the inside.
Mhm.
Just make a list like that. Take a moment. You don't have to look at it every single day, maybe, but at least a few times a week. Give yourself that little internal self-esteem boost from that list. The other list I was mentioning about self-respect before, the little things you accomplish each day. You can put some structure to it, like, again, categories I mentioned before: effort, self-control, acts of courage, or just list a couple of things you did that day that you feel good about. Those kind of lists keep you clear, keep you mindful of what it is that's worthy about you. Keep you mindful that you are connected to something divine within you that really wants you to make those kind of lists, to read over those kind of lists and really stick with them.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that, because there is that still small voice that we all have, right? That we need to listen to more. The more when we listen to it, that voice gets louder and louder. And so then you could use that as your guide. And one of the things that I do that really helps me move from this self-critic, this inner critic, to the inner cheerleader, is to I do every night, I do a mirror work, and it's right before I go to bed. And the thing is, this is a Jack Canfield success principle, where you start is 40 days. He says you have to do it for 40 days or nights, 40 nights, right before you go to bed. And you look at yourself in the mirror, you're brushing your teeth, washing your face, whatever you're doing. And you just stop and you call yourself by your name. You're looking in your own eyes. And so hey, Julie, you did a great job today. You did this, you did that, you did, you really helped out here. And, tomorrow you can get to do this and you get to do that. And then from there, after you do all that, then you say, and I love you. You again, looking into your own eyes and you say, I love you. And it is transformational. It really is. It helped me along with so many people that it just that was something that really helped me rewire my system. And so again, it's all about uncovering, right? Uncovering what is already there. We're already worthy. We're already our own cheerleaders. We can be. And so it's just uncovering and undoing what society has put on us. So,
You know, you've used the term inner cheerleader and inner coach. And I assume you are especially connecting those terms to the divine within, to, if you choose to use the term God or higher power. I'm assuming that's a big part of your connection.
it is absolutely.
So I'm just going to take that one more step, because that 100% fits me, works for me. I know that my own personal faith in God within, the divine within, is as important to me for my mental and emotional well-being as anything in my life. This is something that did not come to me, though, till too many decades into my life. And like yourself, I'm sure we both feel just better later than never. It's here now. We know we're going to stay with it, and that's all that matters. The one thing I wanted to add just only is, I'm very struck by it. So use the terms inner coach and inner cheerleader. One of the terms I use is inner comforter. And what strikes me is we're really, of course, using terms that completely overlap.
Yes.
Thinking then of the divine within, the real source. The divine within knows we're worthy. It knows it. It knows every single one of us is. So it's really wonderful to come to take on faith that we have a part of us inside that is our cheerleader, coach, and comforter, and that we can turn to that part of us inside, whatever term anyone uses for it. We're using divine and God right now. And again, obviously, there's a lot of different terms, but anytime, any place, anywhere that we are feeling something that it's a negativity, it's where we're doubting our worth, where there's from our last presentation, there's some gaslighting we're being subjected to. And at that moment, it's hurting us and our self-worth is going down. If we mindfully practice going right to divine within, we're going to get the cheerleading, we're going to get the coaching, we're going to get the comforting we need. It's so wonderful and healing and building of that self-worth.
Absolutely. There it is. There it is. It's that the sooner you can come back to that, like you said, you can go straight there. It's wonderful. And sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I forgot I have this divineness within me and I can tap into that. And so one of the questions or one of the things when I feel off and when I feel that I'm just like depleted or anxious or whatever about whatever issue, the thing that I ask is, help me to see this differently, right? And it just kind of like it literally takes so much of the noise away of the mind chatter that goes and goes and goes, and it's just like, no, stop, help me to see this differently. And that is truly another thing that has helped me too, is calling on that connection that we all have to the divine, the God within us, that we can tap into that. And it's asking a question, you're asking for help, and so the help is already there. And that's another quick little thing that can help with somebody's feeling of worthiness.
What I especially like about that idea, you mentioned about at times you may feel anxious, or maybe you don't exactly say critical of yourself, but being self-critical and whatever. So especially times when we're caught up in worrying and obsessing and ruminating, or we're caught up in the kind of beating up on ourselves that we all do at times, being unnecessarily self-critical and self-doubting. I kind of think of all of that as just, I put it under the heading of spiraling down. I didn't create that term. Obviously, the term is out there. But why I use that term is because when we're caught up in any kind of spiraling, it's very difficult. You know it, and I know it. It's very difficult to remember to go to the divine within, because through the chatter, through the noise, what's really going on in part is the inner critic, inner bully, is creating that chatter, is creating that noise, so that, at least the way I look at it, it keeps us. It almost tries to make absolutely certain we don't go to the divine. So anytime on any given day, whether it's obsessive worry, whether it's negative self-critical thinking, anytime on any given day when you mindfully recognize, I'm in the throes of spiraling right now, I can shift. I need to shift. And making that shift and going right to that inner coach, that inner comforter, is such a blessing. It's such a gift we give ourselves. And the divine is in there saying, I'm here anytime.
Yeah. Right. And it's so true. And it is, because we, like you said, we all spiral down, and it's like you're getting sucked down into this abyss, and you can go, I call it going down the rabbit hole, and you're just, it's just, it could be days, it could be a year, it could be whatever it is, whatever time frame, but you can stop it. You can stop it at any time and say, no, I'm done here. I'm choosing this. I'm choosing this. And it's not that you want to push that part of you away, right? As I say, it's like, if there's a child standing in front of you that they're crying and they're upset, you don't want to push them away, right? You want to comfort them. You want to hold them and say that everything's going to be okay, right? So if that's your inner child that is crying out for help, then you don't want to push that away. You want to acknowledge it and say, okay, I hear you, I feel your pain, but we're going to be okay. And you can almost like hug that small inner child to know, to tell it that you see it, you understand, and you may not understand why, but you want to understand, and just hold it with that sense of comfort, as you said. And it helps to, Thich Nhat Hanh always said, if you're fighting against the current, it's going to be stronger. There's going to be a lot of resistance. But if you turn around and you go with the current, then it's going to be a lot easier to get to the other side of the river, right? So if you're within this spiraling down, it's not like you want to go down, but you want to stop and then just kind of let it flow through you. Let it dissipate by acknowledging it and not fighting it. There's this resistance to it that makes it stronger. So it's a matter of acknowledging and then knowing that you can make a different choice, knowing that you can say, okay, I'm done here, and we're moving to this other direction now, getting that clarity, getting that connection to that divineness, and moving forward from there.
I'm figuring we only have a couple of minutes left. Everything you just said to me goes with inner peace.
Yeah.
The creating and the building and the sustaining of inner peace includes in part what you were just alluding to. Part of the shifting off, spiraling down, is to recognize that there are some feelings in there, that your inner child is feeling. It could be sad, it could be scared, it could be hurt. And that's what's feeding all that obsessive worry. That's what's feeding all that negative self-criticism. If yes, you go with those feelings, embrace them as perfectly human. I say those words, I don't know how many times a day, to myself, the people I'm working with. What you're feeling is perfectly human. And that's part of embracing it. And when you come to really be clear that every single feeling, no matter how vulnerable you're feeling, it is part of your being perfectly human. And that goes with it goes with the divine, making sure that you remember that. And you make sure to keep that in mind. And just the other thing I'll quickly throw in, all of this, my favorite 2 P words: practice and patience, practice and patience, practice and patience.
Absolutely. And I'll ditto that too. Practice and patience. That's it. All right, so I think we had another great conversation here, and I hope that it helps anyone who's listening to this, or share this with anyone that you think might feel that you feel that they could really use this kind of acknowledgement. And we'll be back for more, right? Look for more, even more conversations.
So it's great again.
Take care.
Take care.